Cell phone buried in the woods, it was still on. True disturbing discovery story. This happened when I was 16, during a camping trip with my cousin. We were out in rural Washington, hiking a side trail near Mount Rainier. Thick forest, no one else around, no cell service. We were messing around, tossing rocks and exploring off-trail, when I noticed something weird sticking out of the dirt. It looked like a piece of plastic at first. I thought it was litter, but when I dug a little, I realized it was an old iPhone. Half buried, screen facing down. It still had power. There was no lock screen. It opened straight to the camera app, like someone had been recording and just left it. The weird part? The camera was still on, recording, and the timer said it had been recording for 43 hours. I picked it up and stopped the recording. My cousin thought it was hilarious, said maybe we'd found someone's secret woods porn or something, but I felt wrong holding it. I opened the gallery. There were only 2 videos. The first was just 2 hours of static, like the camera had been pressed against fabric in someone's pocket. Muffled breathing, occasionally branches crunching. The second one was the one that had been recording when we found it. It showed us, me and my cousin, from a distance, like someone had set the phone up and waited for us to walk into the frame. We were visible. We were visible in the distance, throwing rocks and laughing from the exact moment before I saw the phone, like it knew we'd be there. We didn't say a word to each other. Just ran back to the camp, threw the phone in a Ziploc bag, and hiked out the next morning. Back in town, we turned it over to a ranger station and told them where we found it. Here's the creepy part. They called me a week later, said they tracked the phone back to a missing persons case from 2019. A girl named Zoe, who vanished while hiking alone in the same woods. Only her phone had been dead when they searched for it, and she didn't even own an iPhone. I asked what they meant. They told me this wasn't her phone, but it had her fingerprints on it. Want to go for number 6, and I stopped at a gas station that doesn't show up on maps. True highway horror story. 2 years ago, I was on a solo road trip through northern Arizona. I just graduated and wanted some time to clear my head, so I took a week to drive through the desert. I had no real schedule, just a general loop I planned to follow back to California. One night, I was somewhere between Winslow and Holbrook. The sun had just gone down, and I was dangerously low on gas. I hadn't seen another car in nearly 45 minutes. That's when I saw it. A tiny, flickering neon sign ahead on the right that just said, gas. 1 pump. No cars. A rundown little shack of a station. I pulled in anyway. I didn't have a choice. There was a bell on the pump, so I rang it. Nothing happened. I walked toward the little booth where the attendant would be, and sure enough, someone was inside. A man. Pale skin. Dark, sunken eyes, staring straight ahead. He didn't acknowledge me at all until I knocked on the glass. Then he smiled. But his smile never reached his eyes. He came out, moved slow, didn't say a word. He started pumping my gas manually like it was the 1970s. While he did, I glanced around the place. No security cameras, no card reader, no price signs, nothing digital at all, just dust, old tire tracks, and rows of missing posters on the side of the shack. I asked him how far to the next town. He didn't answer. He just said, "You didn't see this place, understand?" I froze. "Excuse me?" He looked me dead in the eye, leaned closer, and said it again. "You didn't stop here. You don't remember this." Then he handed me a receipt. But it wasn't a receipt. It was a Polaroid photo of me, standing next to my car, only I hadn't seen anyone take it. And the weirdest part? In the photo there was a shadow behind me, a figure, tall, thin, with no face. I didn't ask questions. I just got in my car and drove. When I got to the next town, I tried to find the station again on Google Maps. Nothing. No record of a gas station anywhere along that stretch of road. I even tried retracing my route 2 months later when I passed through again. That shack? Gone. But at the side of the road near where it had been was a wooden cross with 6 names carved into it and 1 blank space at the bottom, like it was waiting for another. My Uber driver took me somewhere that wasn't on the map. True creepy rideshare story. This happened 2 years ago when I was still in college in Chicago. I was heading home from a friend's party around 1 a.m. I was a little tipsy, so I decided not to take the train and called an Uber instead. I remember it clearly because the guy who picked me up was driving a dark green Toyota Camry, older model, spotless inside. The kind of car that looks like someone really lives in it. There were air fresheners, a dashboard hula girl, even a little digital clock mounted next to the speedometer. He didn't say much, just nodded when I got in and confirmed my name, but something was off almost immediately. His phone, which had the Uber GPS open, never said a word. No, turn left, or in 500 feet, make a right. It was completely silent. He just drove, like he already knew the way. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe he just muted the voice directions. Maybe he was one of those drivers who memorizes routes. We drove for about 10 minutes. I remember passing a gas station I usually see on the way to my apartment. But then we didn't make the normal right turn. I looked at my phone. The Uber app still said we were en route. ETA was the same, but the little blue dot, my location, had started moving away from the route. I leaned forward and said, "Hey, I think you missed a turn." He didn't respond, just kept driving, eyes fixed on the road. I said it again, louder this time. "Hey, wrong way." Still nothing. That's when I noticed something. The rear view mirror, it was angled up. I could see the ceiling of the car, not me. He had deliberately positioned it so he couldn't see me, and I couldn't make eye contact. I asked him to pull over. Loud. Firm. Still nothing. So I reached for the door handle, ready to get out at the next stoplight, but we didn't hit any lights. We had turned off the main road and were now heading down some kind of back street. No lights, no houses, just tall, dead trees on both sides and gravel crunching under the tires. Then his phone made a noise, but it wasn't from Uber. It was some kind of old text-to-speech app. The robotic voice said, "Arrived at location." Except we were in the middle of nowhere, just an overgrown lot. No streetlights, no houses, just a long metal fence and something that looked like a boarded-up shack past it. He finally spoke. Just one sentence. "You should get out now." His voice didn't match his face. He looked like he was in his 40s, but his voice was weirdly young, like a teenager trying to fake being older. I refused. I demanded he take me back to a populated area. He didn't argue, just stared at me through the mirror, finally angled down, and said, "You're lucky." Then he reversed the car without another word and drove me back to the main street. Not my apartment, just some random intersection downtown. I got out and didn't even look back. I reported it to Uber, gave them the car model, time, even the guy's face. They told me no ride had ever been assigned to me. My payment had never gone through, and there was no record of a green Camry tied to my account that night. Voice beneath my bed. True, scary sleepover story. I was 14 when this happened. It was the kind of thing you tell people years later and they laugh nervously, waiting for the punchline that never comes. I was spending the night at my friend Josh's house. It was one of those typical early 2000s Friday nights. Pizza, horror movies, and pretending we weren't freaked out after watching The Ring way too young. Josh's house was old. His parents had inherited it from his grandfather, and most of the upstairs still had that dusty, floral wallpaper smell. His bedroom was the only updated room on the second floor, but even then, the walls creaked like something was always shifting behind them. We stayed up late gaming, and by 1:30 a.m. we passed out. I took the floor with a sleeping bag. He crashed in his bed. The house was dead silent, until it wasn't. Sometime in the middle of the night, maybe 3 a.m., I woke up because I thought I heard whispering, like really close, right next to my ear. I rolled over, disoriented, thinking maybe Josh was saying something, but he was sound asleep. I listened for a minute. Nothing. Just when I was about to chalk it up to a dream, I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't whispering, it was breathing from under the bed. I froze. I thought maybe it was Josh playing a prank, but I could see him on the bed above me, and this breathing wasn't him. It was wheezing, raspy, like someone who just run a mile and was trying not to be heard. I stayed perfectly still. My heart was pounding so hard, I felt like it was going to wake the whole house. Then, I swear on my life, a voice whispered, "You're in my spot." I shot up and scrambled into Josh's bed, shaking him awake. He was pissed at first until he saw my face. I told him someone was under the bed. We both looked. Nothing. Just my sleeping bag, slightly crumpled like I just rolled out of it. The next morning, Josh's mom noticed I looked pale and asked if I was sick. I told her I had a nightmare. She looked really uncomfortable and said, "That's strange. You know, when Josh was little, he used to cry about someone talking to him from under the bed. He called him the man who lost his voice." I didn't sleep at Josh's house again after that, but I think about it more than I should, especially because sometimes when I lie awake in my own bed, I still hear that breathing through the walls, and it wasn't me. True creepy apartment story. I moved into a new apartment last year. It was a nice, quiet complex on the edge of town with high ceilings and freshly renovated units. It was affordable too. I got lucky. The first few weeks were normal. I got to know a couple of the neighbors, especially the guy in the unit next to mine, Chris. He seemed like a nice guy, always friendly, always saying hi when I passed his door. But then I started hearing things. It was subtle at first. It wasn't much, just a tap on the wall every now and then, like something knocking or maybe a light thud. At first, I thought it was just the building settling. But the noises didn't stop. In fact, they intensified. I woke up one night around 2 a.m. and heard it clear as day. A voice from the wall. It wasn't a loud whisper or a murmur. It was soft, but it was unmistakable. It was my name. Adam! I jolted upright. I thought maybe I was dreaming, so I rubbed my eyes and tried to go back to sleep. But then it happened again. Adam! I tried to ignore it. But every night around the same time, I'd hear it. Sometimes it was just a whisper. Sometimes it was a soft knock or a thud followed by that same voice. It wasn't my name, though. It was his name. One night, it happened again. But this time, I couldn't ignore it. I stood up, walked over to the wall, and knocked back. No response. I knocked again, harder this time. And then, through the wall, I heard it. A slow, deliberate voice. Calm. "I'm not who you think I am." I froze. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what to do. I knew I had to find out what was going on, but something in the pit of my stomach told me I wasn't ready. The next day, I went to Chris's apartment to confront him. I knocked on his door and waited. No answer. I knocked again. This time, louder. Still, nothing. Finally, I tried the door, and it was unlocked. I stepped inside. The apartment was empty. Nothing was out of place. But the weirdest thing, the walls were covered in scratches. Faint, vertical lines etched into the plaster, like someone had tried to claw their way through. I walked deeper into the unit. The air was thick and the silence felt wrong. And then I saw it. On the floor, under a pile of old newspapers, was a cell phone. A cheap one. No brand name. I picked it up, turned it on, and the screen blinked to life. There was only one message. It was from Chris. "Help me. I can't get out. They're waiting." I ran out of that apartment so fast I didn't even lock the door behind me. I haven't seen Chris since. He didn't answer my texts. The landlord says he moved out without giving notice, but his apartment is still locked. No one's been inside. But sometimes at night, I still hear it. The voice. Adam, and the tapping. I don't know who's on the other side of that wall anymore, and I don't want to find out.